Say, goddamn. You said, all right, all right, all right. I said, let's do a podcast. Let's sit down. Let's get a coffee. Let's just talk about 1, 2, 3, 4. Coffee with the Sam. Got a little podcast. Grab yourself a little coffee and a podcast.
What's up, gang, and welcome to another episode of the Coffee with Sam podcast. You just caught me sipping on some of my Flux Gaming. Head to fluxgamingnutrition.com. Just Flux Gaming, not Flux Gaming Nutrition. The reason why I said that is because it is full of nutrition. So it's not just a caffeinated drink. It's got all your nutrients in it to make it a nutritious drink. So it's not just one of these ones that gives you the buzz and it's got all the taurine and all that stuff in it. It's got a little bit of caffeine in it, but then it throws you all the vitamin A, B12, all the vitamins that you need to replenish yourself when you're doing. It's not just a gaming fuel. It says gaming, but podcasting. I'm here sweating in this studio. I do stink a little bit. Sweating in this studio, repping my Dark Angels t-shirt, but I'm sweating. So when I'm sweating, I'm losing electrolytes and all that stuff. This has electrolytes in it, vitamins, electrolytes, and a little bit of that sweet caffeine explosiveness, just to keep me going for a stimulated conversation. Now, before we get into today's episode, which I'm so excited to share with you stimulation freaks, I've got a show, guys, a live show on the 15th of September, Friday the 15th September. We are hitting the Abbey Theatre in Nuneaton, and we're bringing the coffee. We're from the studio to the stage. We're bringing my Coffee with Sam podcast live. So guests that I've had on the show are going to be performing while we talk to them, while you guys listen and watch their episode. They're going to be performing that live. So we've got Matt Hobbs performing. He's singing number of tracks. We've got Eva Abley, the legend. She is back. Then we're bringing you Reese Thompson, who's been on the podcast. I think he's got legend status on the podcast now because he's been on 3 episodes of the podcast. He is talking to you about his story of how he was up on top of the hill. Then he was down and out, and he brought himself back to being a great, content life that he is living now, having purpose and giving that back to people in the world through his charity. Then we have a magician. Ooh, so we've got singing, dancing, comedy, magic, and inspirational stories hosted by your boy to all you listen and watch this podcast. So guys, please head to the link in the bio or the link in the description underneath this YouTube video. If not, head to your host Sam Thompson Instagram. Click the link in the bio, and the links to all the podcasts on every platform and video are all there, but also the link to the live show tickets are there. It's going to be a great show, guys. It's over 2.5 hours long. It's all put together by me. It is choreographed by me. It is all welcome to my mind. It's what's going on in this little dome of mine, and it's all put onto a stage using the fantastic people that we have on the podcast. So less about me. Let's get into today's episode of the Coffee with Sam podcast. This guy has an inspirational and crazy story. He is a Commonwealth champion boxer from Brum, local lad from Brum, but he is also a award-winning Poet Laureate. I hope I said the right word there. Poet Laureate. Okay, so he's won belts as a boxer, awards as a poet. Now he puts that all together and he travels the country teaching people about his story, how to be better, and also to find their purpose in life. Traveling through schools to teach poetry and boxing, puts it all together, and he's got his own business, traveling, giving back to the community. Guys, please, can you welcome into the Coffee with Sam podcast for this amazing inspirational episode, Mr. Matt Windle. Well, technical issues aside, welcome to the show, Matt. Now, your last name, Windle?
Windle, yeah, like swindle without the S.
Yeah, I don't like getting it wrong. Welcome to the show. Thanks for giving that your time to join me today. When the way I run the show is you introduce yourself. You get to blow your own trumpet. I think it tells a story a lot better than me reading off something I found off the internet or wherever else. But I am really excited to dive into your story because you have this like two sides to you, which I think when you talk about sport, your other love can be seen as when they talk about in motion. When you're boxing and you're fighting, it can probably be seen as the same as your other love, and probably see how they come together. But Matt, I want you to explain who you are and why you do what you do.
So I guess in a nutshell, Matt Windle, poet by day, professional boxer by night, and it's my role, I think, to try to encourage and inspire others to pursue their passions, whatever that may be, whether it's the stereotype or completely against the stereotype and going against the mold, whatever it is that an individual is passionate about. I like to try and encourage them and give them the confidence to go after it and the belief that they can achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve in their life, regardless of where they come from, who they are, their surroundings, and so on.
So why boxing? We'll get to unless the other love poetry came first. Why boxing?
Boxing was just something, or martial arts in general was something that I just always had an affinity with. I was all like from primary school, year 3, year 4, so we were what, 7, 8, 9 years of age. Me and all my friends who were big WWF wrestling fans, and we was all just ignoring the "don't try this at home" messages, and we were elbow dropping each other off our mum's settee, and all that sort of stuff. And as we then just got older and started to go into secondary school and stuff, and it was like boxing was sort of the next thing after wrestling. And it was men in a ring fighting for belts. So it was kind of like the real wrestling. My brother did karate when I was younger, but he's older than me, so he was an adult when I was younger, so he paid for himself and stuff. But he did karate, and I wanted to do karate, but we couldn't afford to send me. I'm the perfect size and stature to be a jockey, but I couldn't afford a horse, so just ended up sending me down to the boxing gym for £1 a session instead. Now we are the lightest professional in the country.
Now, before people might just
But even as a footballer as well, sorry, even as
it's
a
all right.
footballer, I was that Roy Keane aggressive. Like, I loved the shoulder barge and the tussle, and I wasn't dirty. I'd never try and break somebody's leg or nothing like that at all. But I just loved the tussle, and more times than not, that I'd end up I'd go in with a good shoulder barge. I mean, I'm only a dot now, but kids would go flying, and their dad would start mouthing off, and me being a gobby little 13, 14-year-old with a little chip on his shoulder would be mouthing off back to the dad. And next thing you know, me and the dad would be like tumbling down the hill and stuff. So yeah, all signs just led to I was getting into trouble then at school for getting into a few fights in the playground, and street fights and stuff. So all signs just sort of pointed to the boxing gym. Like I say, finally my parents allowed me to go, and they thought he probably won't stick it, probably won't be anywhere near as tough as what he thinks he is, but at least he scratched that itch. And then 18 years later and a whole heap of scars, here we are.
Well, that's normally the story, isn't it? Into boxing, there's normally
Yeah.
you have some sort of issue that your parents need to try and get under control, or you have that drive to want to be scrapping at school or whatever else, or you've got older brothers and that type thing. Um, do you find, if people haven't already gathered where your accent's from, do you find that, because I think growing up in the Birmingham area, Tamworth, Lichfield, Warsaw, Wolverhampton, those surrounding areas of Birmingham, boxing was a massive thing. It was like that sport that even if you didn't want to box, a few of your friends did, so you'd end up going down the gym. Now you said it was £1 a session. Boxing always did seem that cheap sport. Football was too expensive, rugby was too expensive. But our actual which is why I love like what yourself did with the Commonwealth, and also Leon Edwards as well, bringing big eyes on Birmingham. I think we have got a big fight scene that's been there for quite some time. Do you find that was maybe part of the reason why you fell into fighting?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing is with Birmingham, from a boxing perspective and just from an overall potential perspective, Birmingham is a sleeping giant and still is to some degree, but it's slowly beginning to wake up. The Commonwealth Games showcase that we can deliver events on an international platform and produce the absolute best quality in less than half of the time that cities normally have to undertake an activity such as the Commonwealth Games. And I think again from a boxing perspective, it's always been London, of course, Manchester, Liverpool, you know, these fight cities and so on. And Birmingham have always had fighters, the McCrackens, who you can see on my t-shirt. I'm affiliated with you know, Macklin and Elcock, and there's always been an undercurrent of quality fighters from Birmingham, but it's just never seemed to fully take off, and it is now because we've got more. It's like anything, isn't it? It's a trickle effect. You know, you get one, then there's two, then there's four, then there's eight, and it just keeps on going. So there's so many more fighters now from Birmingham that are occupying on a high league, whether it's with Eddie Hearn or Frank Warren or Ben Shalom or whoever they're occupying on television platforms, and you could now do a whole card, a stacked card that was filled with title fights, just with lads from Birmingham and the Black Country. Um, Same with the football, like I say, I already alluded to the Commonwealth Games and the athletics circle and so on. So yeah, I think now Birmingham is finally starting to get the recognition it deserves. And I don't know what it is really, why we haven't seemed to take off. Like I say, we're the second city. We've got so much potential for what we can do. We slap bang in the middle of the country, so it's accessible. You know, you're kind of 2-3 hours away from everywhere. I just don't quite know why we've been overlooked so much, but I think slowly but surely that's changing. And long may it continue, and let's
I
hope
think
the good times keep coming.
in Birmingham, I think we struggle to create a following. We struggle to say, "Cool, I'm going to get behind Matt, and I'm going to travel to Liverpool, wherever he goes to another country, whether to follow him." Whereas you find your bigger cities like London, Liverpool, they'll go, "Yeah, we're behind it, and we're the fighting Liverpool, or we're going to follow this fighter from London." Whereas I think Birmingham, we struggle to say, "Yeah, we're going to get behind this lad." But I think it is coming
Well, it's
now.
funny, you wouldn't believe how many people. Because my last year, I've been fighting out of Birmingham now for the last two 2.5 years, and I haven't had a fight in Birmingham since 2019. But you wouldn't believe how many people contact me on social media, or they'll comment on one of the posts on social media, and they'll say things like, "Oh, Matt, when are you fighting closer to home? When are you going to be fighting in Birmingham again? Let me know when you're fighting closer to home." And some of the people that say this have never came to support me or watch one of my fights when I was fighting in Birmingham. And now that I'm fighting out of Birmingham and I've had a few fights on the TV, or I've won a title or whatever, now they want to know when I'm fighting closer to home. And like my last few fights have been Sheffield, Leeds, Liverpool. Like I'm fighting a couple hours away. It's not, you know, sometimes people act like it's the absolute other end of the world. I mean, it's not even if I was in Newcastle or something, that's a little bit. further on again. But places like Sheffield and Liverpool and the like, if you wanted to, you could go there and back on the same day. You might be a bit tired if it ends up being a late night or whatever, but it's doable, it's drivable to go there and back in the same day. It's not like you have to get accommodation, you know. So whilst I've been fighting out of town, I've not been the other side of the world. You know, I've been a couple hours up the motorway. I've always said it sounds a bit double Dutch really, but I think Birmingham is almost too big and too small in equal measure. So like London is so big that it almost shrinks itself, and fighters from East London will be supported by the surrounding areas of East London, and fighters from South London will, they'll be supported by the people from the surrounding East London radius, and so on and so forth. And then Liverpool and Manchester, because they're smaller than Birmingham. Okay, you've got like Greater Manchester and stuff, but they all then want to go out and support their local guy. But with Birmingham, it's like it's a big city, but everybody knows everybody at the same time. So the people that I would be attempting to sell tickets to, 3, 4, 5 other professionals will also be trying to sell tickets to. So whilst I don't think professional boxing tickets are extortionately expensive at the sort of baseline, if you were spending 40 quid on me and 40 quid on Eggington and 40 quid on Denny and 40 quid on Liam Davis and 40 quid on, do you know what I mean? Then of course it stacks up. So you have to sort of make a choice. Yeah, it's tough. It really is. I mean, I would love boxing to harness almost like a darts sort of mentality. Like a night out at the boxing is almost like a night out at the darts. You know, there might be some people in fancy dress or whatever, but they're just having a few drinks and having a good time, and the promoters can get the music and the tunes playing in between fights and whatever.
Well, that's
and
what
just
that's
end up
what
having
cricket
like a
have done.
good night.
Cricket have done with the 100.
You have to.
I was never a cricket fan.
Event.
I went to the 100 last week. Had a great time. Now I'm into cricket. Now I'm watching the Ashes, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like, just because they've given it more of a spectator friendly, not a 10-week test that you feel like you've got to go to every single one. Now, the boxing, that's a good shout. Like, going on to that, I want to know your opinion on the circuses that are going on at the moment. Do you agree with them? Do you not agree with them?
The YouTube boxing and stuff. I hate them.
Sorry, call them boxing. So I meant circuses, 100%.
I
Do you not
absolutely hate them.
Do you not like that they're bringing eyes onto your sport though?
No, because I don't think it brings eyes onto the right part of the sport. I don't think because the eyes that they're bringing on largely, the likes of KSI and Jake Paul and all these charlatans, they've just got young teenage eyes that that's who subscribe to their YouTube and all the rest of it. So I'll go and work at a school when kids will be asking a few questions, and at some stage someone's gonna put their hand up and go, "Who would win in a fight, you or Jake Paul?" And that sort of stuff. And they don't ask or know anything really about actual boxers.
Yeah.
They then just ask more about Paul or KSI, and the only one then that they'll kind of touch onto, and this is for obvious reasons as well, is Tommy Fury. And even him being a proper boxer is it's a bit of a grey area, And I had to say, because I was asked this question back in March, and someone said, "Who would win a fight, you or Jake Paul?" I said, "Well, he's the second heaviest in the country, in the second heaviest weight or in the world, and I'm the second lightest weight in the world." I said, so just on sheer size and weight and everything, I'm probably not going to make a big dent on him. And then another kid put his hand up. He went, "Who would win in a fight, you or Tommy Fury?" I was like, "Well, you know what I've just said about Jake Paul?" He was like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you know, they've just fought each other." Yeah, yeah. So it's probably the same answer, isn't it? Oh, right, okay. Then another kid put his hand up and he said, "I understand what you're saying about the weight thing and everything, but just hypothetically speaking, pound for pound, who would win in a fight out of you and Jake Paul?" So they wanted an answer. And I said, "Okay, who if we're talking pound for pound and we're not including weight," I said, trying to compare Jake Paul to me in the field of boxing
It's
is
upsetting.
like it's like trying to compare my, I don't know what, I've got 200 YouTube subscribers to his
Yeah.
millions of YouTube subscribers. I said we don't even come close. His last fight was an 8 rounder that he lost, and that was the only one. The first one he's done, and that's the most amount of rounds he's ever boxed. My last 4 fights have been 12 rounders. My next fight will be a 12 rounder. 2 fights before that were 10 rounders, and 2 fights for that before that I did my first 8 rounder. So when you think that he's got all the millions and everything now to just be a full-time pro and train and not work, and I'm training before work, going to work, training after work, and I'm going into my fifth 12-round fight in a row. I said we don't even,
Yeah.
we're not even in the same conversation with regards to boxing, you know. And he's like, "Oh," I said, "I don't care if that sounds big headed or whatever. That's just the fact of what it is." And they're like, "Oh yeah." So, you know, if people watch that and then go, "Oh, you know what? I'm gonna go and buy a £40 ticket off my local professional that I always see jogging past my house," or, you know, then that's great.
Yeah.
I just don't think it really does, because all it does is it makes everybody think even more that it's all glitz and glam. It doesn't put highlights on the small hall shows. And then whenever you are boxing on a small hall show, people always say things like, "Is there a title fight on?" Or, "Is there anyone on there that I might know? Is anyone boxing on there that I might know?" Um, and the classic for me is there there are a lot of people on shows that I've boxed on in years gone by, and they've gone, "Oh, is someone like Eggington boxing on the show?" And I said, "You know, no, Eggington's like on Sky and all the rest of it now. His days of boxing at the Villa are sort of past." I said, "But if you would have come and watched me in my last fight, or last year, or a few years ago when I started, or whatever, Eggington was on the bills." Look,
Yeah.
you get big fighters on the bills. It's just before they've exploded. So I shared a memory a few months ago, and on the same bill. And again, when I say these names, you casual boxing fan or whatever wouldn't have heard of the majority of these. But there was me, Tyler Denny, Brad Foster, and there was one that might have been Craig Cunningham. I think now Craig Cunningham was the WBC international champion, beat Olympic bronze medalist Anthony Ogogo, and ended his career live on Sky Sports and at the NIA. Tyler Denny is now the English champion, fights regularly on Sky Sports. Brad Foster has been the British and Commonwealth champion and fights regularly on BT Sports, now TNT. And myself, who's the Commonwealth champion, and I fight on Fight Zone and the BBC. So all of us there are now lads that are boxing on TV and have won titles and been in fights of the year and so on and so forth. But 4 years ago, or whenever that memory was from, none of us was anybody as
Yeah.
such. But that's supposed to be the enjoyment of it, is go and watch people, because they're possibly tomorrow's breakthrough stars, you know. So
But that's also
you know,
that's all your reason.
the,
That's
the
also your
thing that
reason though to why they're watching it. They want to watch it just to support someone because they don't understand technical boxing. They don't want to watch
yeah.
it to watch because they understand boxing and they can go, cool, I think he won that round. Da 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 da. They want to go just to get that thrill of let's go, Matt. Like, God, you can
Yeah,
get into it.
yeah, yeah.
Whereas yourself, you'll go and watch 10 undercard fights because you just enjoy watching boxing.
Yeah, and the final thing that I dislike about the current YouTube boxing is you know, everybody knows the saying you don't play boxing and all that, and this is kind of the antithesis of that. It makes everybody believe that, oh, anyone can do it because these YouTubers are doing it, and they're making tag team matches and you
It's
know,
basically the
all
new
that.
wrestling,
It's
isn't it?
just like,
It's basically the new
yeah,
wrestling, but
yeah, it's like
they
where
actually
they're
hit each
actually
other.
punching each other in the face, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's kind of, it makes people believe that anybody can do boxing, and these, you know, these white collar Wednesday warriors and stuff can just get in there and do it, and it's not, and it's something that I take very seriously, because people have lost their lives doing this and had their lives and their health impacted doing this, and it's not something that you play about with, and you have to do it with the full respect of the game, respecting boxing to its full capacity. Well, you don't do it, you can't be a bit of a boxer, a semi-pro boxer, and you know, it doesn't exist. You've either got to do it to its full capacity. Everyone loves the idea of being a boxer. Everyone likes walking around, being in the pub, or telling a girl that they're chatting to, oh yeah, I'm a boxer, I am, you know, and trying to be the tough guy. But living that life day in, day out, eating healthy food, going for a run in the morning, going to the gym on the evening, 6 7 days a week, losing whatever 2 stone in weight, and all the rest of it, and then get it, after all of that, then you get in the ring and get your face punched. You know, it's not always fun.
No.
So people like the idea of it, but they kind of want to cut corners, you know.
So you keep touching on it. Tell the guys that you are the current Commonwealth champion. That's current, right? You are current?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think. There hasn't been one since. What was that like? Working so
Yeah,
long to become
it,
that.
it was incredible, because that's what it was. I've had some really poor and difficult decisions not go my way throughout my career, as both as a professional and an amateur. Countless times I felt that I've won a fight and not got it, and I'm man enough to say, when I lose a fight, I'm not too proud or embarrassed or anything. I fought for the British title at the weight above, and lost on points. That was fair. I fought for the European title at the weight above and lost on points. That was also fair. So I'm not one of these people that tries to make an excuse every time he loses, but there's been several times where it's not been fair, and I've still lost the fights, you know. So going into that fight for the title, I was like, if I win this, it would just make everything make sense. I had to go for every bit of hardship, every loss, every down. I had to endure that in order to set me on the path of becoming the light flyweight Commonwealth champion, because in doing so, we kind of blew the gates open to a whole new slash a dormant division. Um, I'm the first light flyweight Commonwealth champion this century, the first light flyweight Commonwealth champion from England or Britain, ever, in its 123-year history or something like that. And now all of a sudden, you know, my manager's getting phone calls every week with, this British lad says he can make the weight, and this British lad says he can make the weight, and all the rest of it. And I'm like, well, go and make it then. Anyone can say that they can make it, but you got to go make it, because it's tough. You know, we fight in the 7 stone 10 division, so we weigh in at like 7 stone 9 pound. When I won the title, I was 7 stone 9 pounds 5 ounces. That's like 48 kilo. There are dumbbells in the gym that are that weight. You know, it's just a dumbbell. I was one of the guys that I mentor. I was in the gym with him, and there was a 48 kilo dumbbell just on the side. And I said, "See that there?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "That's what I weighed for my last fight." He was like, he just couldn't believe that that was me compressed into a dumbbell. Do you know what I mean? So it's when even when you're a little dot like me, when you're still a big grown man trying to make weights that, like, when I get down that weight, I've got clothes from primary school that I can fit into. Like, that's how
Insane.
tiny I have to go. It's not very attractive, but it's just so small that I have to get down to. So yeah, I had to win that to make everything make sense. And of course, I still have aspirations and targets that I want to achieve, and so on and so forth. But once I'd done that, I was like, right, kind of everything else now is just sugar sprinkles and bonus points. Do you know what I mean? It's
And
just
you
like
did it in
I'm
your own
the worst.
hometown as well.
Yeah, the worst that gets for me now. I would like I was Commonwealth champion. That's as bad as it gets for me. Do you know what I mean? So there are most professional fighters that never fight a 12-round fight, and I say that, and people always go, "Really?" Because of course they watch it on the TV, and the main event is always a 12-round fight, and they just associate professional boxing with 12-round fights. But if you were to look at or think about how many professional fighters there are in the country, and then kind of how many of them actually go on to compete in a 12-round fight, it's a tiny percentage. So in order for me to do that, and like I say, for my next fight, I'll be going into my fifth 12-round fight in only my 14th professional contest. I've moved through the ranks really quickly. Um, so
What did
yeah,
that
it's
feel
something
like?
that yeah.
What did that feel like doing it in your hometown?
Well, for mine, I had to in the end, because the dates kept changing for the fight, and initially when we should have been fighting much earlier on in the year, and then we had a September date, and then it fell on the Friday that all sport was cancelled due to the Queen's death.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and everything was cancelled. So in the end, my fight took place in October up in Leeds. So we had to go to Leeds to make that fight. But to be honest with you, people always say to me, like, "Oh, you're looking forward to a home fight, or where
Because it was meant to be Brum, right?
where's your
Was it meant to be Brum? Yeah,
initially it
yeah.
was supposed to be, yeah. Yeah, it just kind of, like I say, with I think there was one where he he tried to my opponent he tried to, so 'cause he was coming in from South Africa, and I think he tried to, like, I don't know, blag his COVID test or something like that. So that put the fight on hold for a month. Then the month later is when it was supposed to take place, and the Queen passed away, and all sport was off on that Friday. So then it was postponed for another month. So things like this just kept happening, and I was like 5 days away from the fight. I'm in the gym on the bike, just sweating it out, and all the rest of it. And my phone would go from my coach and manager, Spencer, and he'd say, "You're not going to believe this." And I'd just be like, "Oh God, what?" And then it'd been pushed back another month, and then it'd get pushed back another month. And last, last year tested me. I'm telling you, last year tested me. But yes, in the end, it ended up being in Leeds. But when people talk to me about, "Oh, would you like it to be at home or whatever?" I just say, ultimately, when people say, "Even where's your next fight going to be?" and I just say to them, "In a ring." That's where it will be. Where that ring is then situated, I don't know, but I also don't really care. Madison Square Garden, your back garden, it's going to take place in the ring. So um, where that ring is, I don't care. I like traveling. I like staying in a hotel the night before. I'm not too fussed about everything being at home and creature comforts and all that sort of stuff. So Yeah, I'm just pretty wherever it's supposed to take place is where it'll take place. Do you know what I mean? So I don't worry about the things that are out of my control, and I just get in a ring and I find my little heart out as best as I can.
So, winning the Commonwealth, and I'm going to probably ask you a bit of a deep question here. What does it feel like when you're saying that's the height of your career now, and you're like, I'm cool at that? Well, you're going to keep going, but if anything does happen that you drop again or whatever else, you've still got that's the lowest you're ever going to go. But you still aren't the epitome of what people see as a professional boxer. How does that feel hitting this high to then go, cool, back to life, back to work, back to the
Yeah,
normal? Because there's only like what 10% of those boxers that end up being full time just boxing. What does
yeah. I
that
mean,
feel like?
I think it's something Johnny Nelson revealed the stat the once, but I think it's something like 5% of boxers worldwide make enough money for them to live off.
That was good. Man,
You know, so there's
I picked
just the
10% out the air.
yeah. So, but so basically, if you're a professional boxer, pretty much you're never going to make enough money to live. Even if you make enough where you can afford to be a full-time pro for the 5, 10, 15 years of the duration of your career, you're still then going to need to pick up an occupation down the line once your boxing career's over. Um, I suppose it depends why you get into it. So if I got into boxing because I wanted to be rich and famous and all that sort of stuff, then you win the Commonwealth title, you make a bit of history with it in the process, and then you'd be a bit like, where's the paparazzi? Where's everyone taking photos of me getting in my car? Where is it? Where's the magazines and where's the newspapers? Where's the TV shows? Where is everybody? Then I guess it could feel quite depressing. One of the things that got me into boxing was title belts, the belts that you fight for. Like I explained earlier, I really loved the wrestling as a young kid at primary school, and back then I had all the foam plastic belts that you could get from Argos or whatever as a kid, and I always wanted to do it for titles. So don't get me wrong, I've got a mortgage that I need to pay for, and I need to make money, and if something did just explode, then of course I'd go with it. Absolutely. But I'm not in it to try and become famous, or I'm not boxing to try and become a multimillionaire or anything like that, which often people, because of the YouTube stuff and that, now everyone wants to be millionaires and that sort of stuff. So when people hear that I just get in the ring and a box because I enjoy having a tear up with somebody, they find it hard to get their head around, really. I mean, throughout my life, I've got in bits of trouble, for fighting. I've been stabbed during a fight, and I've been jumped by gangs of people during fights and stuff. And I think, well, when you're boxing, I'm not going to get arrested, I'm not going to get stabbed, I'm not going to get jumped by loads of people. So for me, it was just a way that I could do something that I enjoy to do in the safest, healthiest way possible. So yeah, it can be quite humbling. You kind of you win a title or something, and then like you say, you're back in work the next day. I think I won the Commonwealth title on the Friday, and on the Monday I was teaching at a school, black eyes and all. So it could be a bit, with kids going, oh, we've got to do poetry, we've got to work with this geezer. So it can be quite humbling, but yeah, for me it was just about getting a belt, getting a title belt. That was my £1,000,000.
That's
So
that's good to hear you say that though, which is why I do this podcast for this conversation, because if you end up making it, let's say 5 years time, something happens that you do end up and boxing is the full time, then you've, fingers crossed, there's 80% chance you're not going to go off the rails with money because you're already grounded to the fact of that's not what you're chasing. But I already know boxers. So boxing, I never boxed, but boxers were close to me in my village where I was. And I know a boxer that very well, we discussed the other day in the conversation when we had our little catch up. He was going to go somewhere, and then one or two step backs, and then the pressures of having to sell the tickets and everything else on top of that just fell out of love of it. And it was so sad for someone like me to see him walk away from the sport that he was going to be pretty good at, and I thought could have made, like yourself, a name for himself. And I also seen Eva on this podcast, who's a comedian, Britain's Got Talent. She got put up here on a pedestal for TV, and then they just ditched you and ditched her after that. And she thought that this big stardom was going to come after it. And I even spoke to the winner of Britain's Got Talent, and he said exactly the same. No, Sam, they just ditch you, mate. It's up to you. It's up to you to make something of what they've used you for the last 4 or 5 months. So it's nice to hear you say that, because hopefully one person will listen to this who goes, you know what, I need to switch around my mindset to when I'm chasing a dream like this now. I spend hundreds on this place. If it doesn't make a penny, I don't care. I just enjoy doing it. But if me enjoying doing it makes me a penny in the end, I'm cool with that. And it's like you said, being that grounded can stop. Like I say, I've seen people hit rock bottom and keep hitting rock bottom because they thought it was going to be something when it wasn't. So for you to say that, it is very nice and refreshing to hear it.
Yeah, and I'm quite big on sort of looking at or promoting something which people always deem as more of a negative. So I'm selfish, and people always talk about, if they'd say, "Oh, you're selfish," it's always a negative connotation attached to it. But there are times when we need to be selfish in life, and there are probably millions of people that should be more selfish with their life because it's their life and it's not anybody else's life. So if somebody else doesn't want you to do it, or somebody else doesn't think you can make it, or somebody else doesn't see a point in you doing that because you're not getting money or whatever it might be, if you get some enjoyment, some satisfaction, some fulfillment or achievement or financial, benefit from it, then they're all reasons to do something. And it's the same when I talk to people about writing poetry. And often, young people will say to me, "Oh, I don't know what to write about," or whatever. And I say, just write even about the things that you know, or the things that you're interested in. Because if you want to write about it, chances are somebody out there will want to listen to it. Whereas if you just write something because it's in a competition and it's the hot topic at the moment, and you think it's going to make you sound like a really nice, morally good person, it just comes across like virtue signaling, and people don't want that rammed down their throat. They just want to hear what you have to say as the individual poet or performer, and whatever it might be. So I think it's something that, one thing I get a lot from people when I talk to them about certain topics, boxing of course being one of them, is they say to me, they go, "I can tell how passionate about it you are. I can see in your eyes that you love it when you talk about the actual fight and being in there." And my face is ripped open and my eyes are swelling up and there's blood going everywhere, and I just love it. I'm a bit mad, I guess, but I just love it. And they may not be boxing fans. Some of the people that I'm talking about may even be a little bit anti-boxing, but because they can see my passion and love for it, that's what engages them with the discussion. So people don't always have to enjoy or agree with things that you say, but if you can say it with conviction and obviously with no malice, you're not trying to hurt or offend anybody or so on and so forth, but you're just like, "This is me, this is what I'm doing, you focus on you and what you're doing. If you don't like what I'm doing, that's fine. You don't have to like it. You've got your life where you can go off and do the things that you do like, but this is what I choose to do with my life. And then, like I say, anything that comes from that would be amazing. But I'm realistic enough to know that in my weight division, in this world of equality and equal opportunity and fair pay and all that sort of stuff, somebody that fights in the light flyweight, super flyweight division are never going to earn the same sort of money as somebody who fights in the welterweight, middleweight, heavyweight division. And they can try and kick up a bit of a fuss and cry about it, or you can just sort of get on with it and deal for it for what it is, and then talk about it as I am now. I'm not saying put it, sleep on the topic or anything like that, because we're doing 12-round fights the same way Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury are doing 12-round fights. So yeah, there should be a little bit more of an even playing field with regards to pay, but ultimately I just love fighting for 12 rounds. So if I get to do that,
Now,
I'm happy.
now I tried to like not give it away at the beginning by saying what I was saying, but do you feel that because you hear this boxing and like gymnastics and stuff is poetry in motion? Now, do you think, cheesy as it sounds, is it is there a correlation to why you love boxing and poetry? Because they're not two that you normally, obviously I know like poetry, comedy and stuff like that they can sometimes come from a dark place. Do you
Mhm.
find that the way you have to like box, when you have to pick your shot, you have to pick what's coming next, like a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, is it the same sort of thing with poetry? Do you think there's a correlation to why you like both?
Absolutely. Well, poetry, certainly comedy, like you just referenced there as well, and then of course boxing. Um, Timing is everything. You can have the hardest punch in the world. If you're punching fresh air, you're never going to knock him out. So you need again, you could have the funniest joke in the world. If you mess up the punchline, I could have the best rhyming couplet that anybody's ever heard. But if I forget the rhyming word, it's not going to hit home. So timing is one of the biggest factors there. And it's funny because an old coach of mine always used to talk about my timing from a boxing perspective was one of my strengths, of one of my underrated traits. Of course, from a confidence perspective as well. So when I am getting on a stage to talk in front of a few dozen, a few hundred, a few thousand people, you think, well, if I can get into a ring and get punched in the face on live TV or whatever, then I can get on stage and read a poem at the risk of a few tomatoes and lettuces being lobbed at me. Do you know what I mean? It's so I'll probably live to tell the tale, so it can help from a confidence perspective as well. Of course, the rhythm of it, boxing, it's all about rhythm. Famously, Prince Nassim used to say that he'd listen to music in his head as he was fighting, and he'd kind of move to the music that he was listening to. God knows what music he was listening to, the way that he'd fight. That's what he'd do. So yeah, there are many parallels, and one of the biggest ones which I like to talk about because people often question me on it is they're both art forms, boxing and poetry. They're both genres of the bigger umbrella term of art. And some people go, oh, is it? Kind of questioning you. And you go, well, boxing's a martial art. So yeah, it's a type. In fact, it's something I've been a bit loggerheads with the Arts Council on before, because whenever they funded me to do poetry with punch projects that are like part poetry, part boxercise, I have to make it very, very clear in my application that the Arts Council money is going to be used for the poetry aspect of my workshops, and I get funding from elsewhere to do the boxercise
That's sad. That's so
elements
sad.
of my work. It's,
That's so
it's an
sad.
art, same as photography and painting and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
cartoon and photography, and these all fit in that umbrella term of art for me. So does boxing. So it's a way to be creative, and it's a way to express yourself. And when adults, young people that have been or are going through trauma, when you find a way to express yourself, whether it's through sharing your stories on a podcast, through punching a bag, through drawing an illustration, whatever it may be, again, from a mental health perspective and stuff, it's so much easier for you to work through the traumas and the experiences that you've had to deal with. So art is massive for allowing us to be able to express ourselves, and again, with young people, being able to provide them with a means of communication and to be able to articulate the way that they are feeling, or the scenarios and the experiences that they're trying to go through, because that's why so many people lash out, is because they can't quite articulate their emotions and how they're feeling, so they just lash out. So if you can provide them with the means to be able to do that, hopefully it should lead to a happier, mentally healthier society.
So, with that, where did poetry come from? Was you like brain box at school with literature and stuff like that, or where did the joy come from, or did it come after boxing, before boxing?
Poetry was something that I'd always been able to do, and I know that poetry, or all poetry, doesn't have to rhyme, but I've always just been able to rhyme. So I remember being in year three, it's your first year of primary school. So what's that, 7, 8 years of age, something like that. And I remember us being told that nothing rhymed with orange, and straight away I just went syringe. And it's like, I remember thinking that I was like the brainiest kid in the world, because I was like, how has nobody ever realized that orange and syringe rhymes with one another? And I don't think there'd be like many kids that would even necessarily think of the word syringe when it comes to rhyming, never mind anything else. And I didn't know at the time about like half rhymes and phrase rhymes and assonant rhymes and dissonant rhymes and all the different types of rhyming. To me, I could just rhyme orange with syringe, and that was it. um and then we had to do limericks, and I was the first person in the class to finish, and the teacher said, "Okay, write another one." So I did another one, and I had wrote 2 limericks before the majority of the class had finished their first limerick. So the teacher was like, "Okay, go and help anybody in the class that's stuck." So I was wandering around the class at a 7, 8-year-old child, helping my peers to write poetry. And now if you fast forward 10, 20, 25 years on from there, I walk around classrooms helping young people to write poetry. Then when you get to secondary school again, I had a few poems that I had to write for lessons and stuff, and that I always just had an affinity with it, really. And then I got into kind of rap music and lyrics and MCing and that sort of stuff, but it was still just that joy of writing and playing with words, rhythm, rhyme, so on. And then I was at a preschool, my pupil referral unit, and the teacher said you could write a 2-page story or a 1-page poem, but it's for coursework, so it's got to be done. And I was like, being lazy, I was like, yeah, I'll do the 1-page poem. So did the poem. Teacher was impressed with it. next lesson, she gave me an application form. Could you be Birmingham's next young poet laureate? And I had no idea what it meant or how to pronounce the word or nothing at all. And she encouraged me to enter into the competition. So eventually I did. I left it to the very last day, but eventually I did. I made the final 10, came runner up that year, but was very mesmerized and impressed and inspired by the whole thing. Entered again next year, made the final again the next year. This time I memorized my work, took the microphone, had greater stage presence, and so on and so forth. So in 2007, thankfully, I won that year and became the Young Poet Laureate, being the first male to ever become a Young Poet Laureate. At the time, we're now in double figures up and down the country of lads that have held that title. But that's then what kind of gave me my opportunity to do what I now do as a living, for going into schools and working with young people. And like I said at the beginning, trying to encourage them to pursue their passions. I always make it clear to them. I say, I'm not here to tell you that boxing and or poetry are the best things in the world. What they are the best things in the world for me, to be able for me to express myself. And you will have things that are the best things in the world for you, whether that's the more stereotypical naughty lad, boisterous, getting into boxing, or the not so stereotypical naughty working class male, trouble at school that gets into poetry. Either way, if you've got an enjoyment for it, you can pursue it and go after it. Of course, I need them to partake in the lessons that I do and not just throw skittles and go completely crazy throughout the lessons. I need them to get involved, and I want them to get enjoyment from the lessons that I do, but I'm not there to kind of ram it down their throat that you should all become poets and boxers. It's just, you can become whatever it is that you have an enjoyment for, and your friends will support you with those decisions. And if they don't, they're probably not really your friends anyway. And it's better that you learn that sooner rather than you later, and you've wasted X amount of years thinking that they're your friends, and then they've just left you out in the cold anyway. So yeah, that I try and encourage and inspire the next generation, if you like, as best as I can, just to be themselves, because that's what I'm very, very lucky. I've always been okay with just doing things that I want to do. So if it's something everybody wants to do and I can be part of the crowd, wicked. And if nobody else wants to do it, I'll do it anyway. So, and I don't know where that comes from. I mean, my parents are fantastic, and they've always encouraged me to go off and do things. So, again, as a primary school kid, I was always going for weekends and weeks away with like the Cubs and Beavers and that sort of stuff, and camping and being away from my parents, and that sort of stuff. I flew out to Cyprus on my own when I was 13, and so on and so forth. So I've always been sort of independent in that sense, and encouraged by my parents to be independent. Perhaps that's where it comes from. But yeah, I've just always I've never really seen the point in not doing something that I want to do just because other people don't want to do it. I mean, the most sort of I guess relatable analogy that I can give you is, if I want to watch a film that's out of the cinema and none of my friends want to watch it, I'll go to the cinema on my own and watch it. Whereas there'll be so many people that wouldn't go to the cinema on their own just because they'd feel like a bit of a loser, or they'd look like a loner, or whatever it might be. But I'm like, you're not there to talk at the cinema anyway. You're there to watch the film.
Yeah, you
So
might as well go on your
you could
own.
turn up with your people. What difference does it make? You're eating your popcorn and watching the film. So if there's something that I want to do, I'll do it. And if people want to come along for the ride, wicked, they're welcome. And if they don't, I'm gonna do it anyway. So that's I hope that kind of rubs off on some of the young people that I work with, because being a teenager is tough. Whether you could have the easiest, most privileged life, but being a teenager is still tough.
Hard
You're
work.
questioning
Yeah.
everything. You're trying to find your place in the world. You've got the stress of your exams. You're led to believe that if you don't pass those exams, that your whole life is over before it's even begun. And you're being made to think about what you want to be when you're older and what career do you want to do. And it's tough. It's tough. So I just like to try and give them a little bit of confidence and self-esteem and belief that so long as they work hard and they don't just expect that they can sit there and something will just fall into their lap, if they just keep plodding on and pressing forward, that they can achieve the things that they want to achieve, even if it's not in the initial capacity that they expected. So just very quickly, I was given an assembly at a school in South London earlier this year. And I always ask, I don't ask secondary school so much, but before a poem that I perform for primary school students, I always ask what they want to be when they're older. And they always have incredible answers. They want to be astronauts and physicists and YouTubers nowadays and footballers. And one lad put his hand up, he said he wants to be a paranormal investigator. They want to be doctors and lawyers and teachers and vets and all these incredible things that they want to be. And this one girl, I think she was year 1, and she put her hand up. She's the cutest little thing, and she said, "I want to be a princess," like this, and everybody laughed, and I had to kind of interject a little bit. So I said, "Who's heard of Disneyland Paris?" Yeah, I have. Who's heard of Disneyland Orlando? Yeah, I have. Who's heard of Frozen on Ice and Disney on Ice and all these different on ice shows that they do? Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah. What do all these things have? What does Paris, Disneyland Paris have? What does Orlando, Florida have? What do these things have? And some of them are a little bit perplexed by the question, and then someone kind of cottons on. They go, "Princesses." I said, "Princesses." All right, so she may not become Kate Middleton and actually be queen of the country or whatever, but one day she may work the other side of the world in a beautiful location, and her job every day is to get up and be Anna or Elsa or the Little Mermaid or Cinderella, or I'm not massively au fait on Disney princesses, but whatever princess that she wants to be, she could be. Because I always think that when you see like the stormtroopers and stuff like that, like the Star Wars world in Orlando and stuff like that, imagine chatting to a girl at a bar. She says, "What do you do?" You go, "Oh, I'm a stormtrooper for the Galactic Empire." It'd be pretty cool. Do you know what I mean? So I said, I believe wholeheartedly that if you want to be a princess one day, you absolutely can become a princess, because then it's just about perspective. Like I say, she may not become a princess with the royal family, but if her mortgage is paid because she's the Little Mermaid for Disney, then she's a princess or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to look at sort of perspectives on things and stuff as well. So I just want to make them believe whatever it is. Again, it might be someone that loves football and they don't become a professional footballer, but they might become a match day reporter. So they like writing lyrics and stuff, and they write for, or they might always be getting in trouble for talking, but they become a radio commentator for the
Yeah.
football match. They might always be getting told off for taking selfies or being on their phone or something, so they become a pitch side photographer, and they're the ones that are getting flown out to all the big finals and stuff to be a photographer. They might become a nutritionist or a coach or a masseur or a physio or something like that. There are so many other ways for somebody who wants to be a professional footballer to have a career in professional football. So they're still kind of living the life that they'd like to live, even though they're not the Ronaldo or the Messi. You might be the reason that Ronaldo or Messi scores the winning goal for the team's Champions League final or whatever, because you're the physio and you're the one that kept them in shape and fit and healthy, match ready when they had that little niggle a few weeks ago. So it's just trying to provide them with alternatives for them to still be involved in a career that they would like to, exist within.
I love your take on that, and I love, which is why I wanted to talk to you, the work that you do, and also your background in boxing. I think it was just so it's trying to say inspiring, because I think the words inspire and everything else are just overused these days. But yours is because, like you say, you're happy and content with the Commonwealth. You don't need to be world champion this, world champion that, earning £10,000 a week or whatever else with your Ferraris and your Lamborghinis. You're happy and content with that. And then what you're doing is putting your the way you speak into a job, and you are as literally what you were just describing. That's you, because like you're saying, they can be whatever they want to be. You want to give that to people, and the way you were just speaking, well, that's you. Who would ever thought that you could be a poet and make a job out of it, make a career out of it, and then also keep
Well,
boxing?
when I was young Poet Laureate, and I was handing over the next year, so I'd done my year, and I was handing over to the new young laureate. A lady came over to me, and she lovely lady. She did not mean any malice or anything whatsoever, but she said, I was only like 17 at the time, and she said, "Oh, you are getting a backup, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm at college studying to become a plumber, like all budding poets." And she said, "Yeah," she said, "because you won't be able to make a living off poetry. My son had tried, and he can't make a living off poetry. It can't be done." And by this point, I'd already started going into schools and earning a little bit of money and stuff. But whilst it is through being a poet that I get to earn a living, it's working with young people that is really my living. And I think part of my calling for sure. And my vice to be able to work with these young people is poetry. So I love poetry, and I'm very thankful for the life that it's provided me with, although it's a very kind of humble working class life. I'm not above and beyond anybody or anything like that, but I've got to travel to some amazing places throughout the country, some fantastic places throughout the world, just off of poetry. But yeah, it's just about trying to
I think
say to young people, like, if I can do it, you can do it.
I think the problem is, though, like what I have to keep saying all the time, this looks glamorous to everybody. When I tell them it costs me hundreds of pounds a year to do it, I don't make money out of it. They're like, "Oh," I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's what Instagram looks like. That's what YouTube looks like. This lifestyle that only the 20-30% of people, granted, gaming, social media, stuff like that, has now made it more accessible for people to be these overnight millionaires and stuff like that. It
Yeah,
has given that. But people like yourself putting that story out there, if you are happy and content, you are a millionaire, you have that same thrill that they get, just that life's a little bit easier for them because they have money,
yeah,
disposable money, that's easier
yeah,
to go and buy things, go and buy big things. You maybe struggle some months to pay the bills or whatever, they don't, but you
yeah.
are just as happy as they are. I am just as happy as they are. I'm content. And I think what you're doing is being able to spread that into schools is amazing, because mental health is a big thing at the moment, but kids who don't get to that level at a certain age, and that then they start committing suicide and stuff like that, because they think that's how life should be now. That's all they see, is that life should be Instagram and you should have a Lamborghini at 19. So for you to keep doing what you're doing is incredible, because you're just bringing kids back down to earth.
I saw something the other day. Somebody shared something, and it was just like, these memes or quotes or whatever that they share, and it said something like, "Do you ever feel like when you're getting to your late 20s that you've just got a few more years left to achieve everything you want to achieve? And if you haven't achieved it by then, you're a failure, or you feel like a failure," or something like that. And like, I commented on it. I was like, what in the chocolate fudge are you going on about with
Bro,
this? Like,
I didn't grow
I've
up till
never.
last year when I was 31. I only grew up then.
That's why I call myself Batman, because I still want to be a superhero when I grow up. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just want a big kid, you know. And I was just like, oh my god, you're making out like once your 20s are over, that your life's over. And I said the only thing that's going to make you fail is that sort of mentality. We're
Yep.
living longer, you know. We're fitter and healthier than ever. We're also fatter and unhealthier than ever as well. So it depends. You're the architect of your own demise
Yeah.
or upward trajectory. On that one, we have to take responsibility for that. Um, but yeah, I just thought as if people are kind of thinking that if they haven't achieved their dreams in their 20s, that life's over. And I was just like, nah,
Crazy.
I've just got to keep, plodding forward. Yeah.
So to see the work that you do, because that's the work that you are doing, where can people find your work? Where can they get involved with your work? How do they contact you if they want to get involved in poetry or
Yeah, I
boxing
think
or?
if they want to get in touch with me, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I'm just Matt Windle Poet. Windle, like we said earlier, is like swindle without the S. I'm pretty responsive and stuff. I could be an absolute nightmare to get hold of via email a lot of times because I'm working in the days, I'm either teaching at schools or I'm working within the justice sector as well in an office in Birmingham City Centre. I'm training before work, I'm training after work, I'm training weekends and stuff. So I can be a nightmare to get hold of sometimes. So socials are the best way to do it. I think I don't really upload stuff myself on YouTube. I think if people type in like Matt Windle Poet on YouTube, they'll find a couple of poetry videos. If they type in Matt Windle Boxer, they'll probably find a few videos of me getting beat up and punched in the face and stuff. But yeah, socials are probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. I'm about.
Amazing. Now one question just before we go that I ask all my guests is not a paragraph, just one thing that comes to your head straight away to why you are where you are today. One key to success to why you are where you are today.
Resilient.
Amazing. So I'm going to type that up and that'll go into my book up here where I write everyone's key to success that I speak to goes into a book. What I'm going to do with that book, I don't know. But I get to go back and look at it as well.
Amazon, yes.
So yeah, thanks for taking the time out to speak to me. And I hope, like every reason why I have this conversation, if our conversation can help one person, that's what I keep doing what I'm doing. So please keep up the good work, Matt. And we'll hopefully everyone, and I definitely will be looking out for your next fight. Yeah, thank you for talking to me, dude.
Pleasure. Thank you.